Good afternoon and welcome back once more to my YouTube channel, Defining Virtuosity. My name is Odin Rathnam and I am Professor of Violin at Cleveland State University. This next etude by Wohlfahrt is number 21, also marked Allegro. In the old Schirmer edition, it's marked starting up bow with accents on every other eighth note and on some of the first notes of three-note slurs and sometimes the third note of a three-note slur. I think it's very helpful to practice it that way with small martelés at the tip of the bow, the point of the bow, to work on really stretching the bicep and opening the arm out and in. I think it's also very, very helpful to practice it with a reverse bowing at the sort of frog or for anywhere between the frog and the balancing point of the bow, or even in the middle of the bow with martelés on the string or with colleés off the string or brush strokes. One of the keys is to control the difference between the bow speeds of the slurs and the martelés to make sure that we save the bow on the slurs and have enough string resistance that the bow travels slower. Otherwise, we find ourselves moving more and more towards the opposite end of the bow that we want to be on, which is not so good. So the idea would be that if we take the bowing pattern without any string crossings and without any fingerings, and if I had to do up, down, 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 up, and stay at the tip, I have to do something about those longer up bows to prevent that from happening. And the secret is a little bit more string pressure, closer sounding point to the bridge, and slower bow speed as a result. So if we were doing this figure, save, fast save. So these inward motions, we want to save the bow, go slower. When we combine that with the notes printed, we're basically doing a colleé and a release inward of the elbow at the same time. Save, save. And as I said earlier, this can also be practiced here. We can also do this etude with broader détachés and ignore the dots and just use a little bit more bow on all of the notes that would have been pointed martelés and still slower bows on the slurs. In order to make sure that both hands are functioning well, one of the preliminary studies that you can do with the left hand is single notes to the bow, chained bows where you're slurring the first note to the second to the third, two notes to a bow, three notes to a bow, or six. So single notes would be this way with any troublesome measure, or two-note slurs, or three, or six. And you'll notice that when I do it that way, I'm very conscious about the precise rhythm of the lifts and drops. Not that they should be very tight or overly strong, but that the rhythm is sudden, The lifts are sudden, the drops are sudden. These sort of explosive miniature actions at the base knuckle create articulation without effort. But the actual impact pressures, I don't feel are hard after the impacts. There's complete bounce back in the fingertip. If you go through it this way, this etude should provide less problems. It is, however, one of the studies that I consider a muscle builder, and it is tiring when you to really do correctly the Martelé at the point of the bow. It's not the most musical of the etudes played that way. You can do much more shaping with it when you reverse the bowing and play it with a brush stroke when you're looking for shapes. Towards the end of the study, on the second to last line, I would like to correct one of the old-fashioned fingerings. In the early Schirmer edition, it's marked 3 open 1 1 2 2 3. That's a lot of chromatic moving of the same finger, which we should be able to do, but I don't think it's the most effective way of using modern fingering. So I would suggest instead in that third measure 3 open 1 2 shifts 1 2 3. In the final measure of that second to last line, the position of the notes is changed with the bowing. So the shift change, no, I'm sorry, that works the same. But the next one, on the bottom line first measure, the slur is displaced to have the E flat, E and F natural. Therefore, I think we'll avoid any same note fingerings on those and use 3 different fingers. So use the E flat first finger, E natural second, F third, and then shift to the raised second finger. Again, what we're doing is we're letting the bowing determine what the smartest fingering is. Instead of just being arbitrary and scooping notes, we want to avoid, even though they should be able to be done articulated when necessary, I kind of tend to avoid those fingerings when I can, and would rather do a shift and have different notes on different fingerings, or even a shift. So those measures from the second line from the bottom would then be here, 3 open 1 2 1 2 3. The same thing again. Then this time different, 1 2 3 2 3. The old fingering 1, and then the end of the etude. So there you have it. These are just some pointers for number 21. It's marked Allegro, and remember that when you're working at the point, you will feel a stretch in the bicep and you will get a little tired, but it's worth it. So just very nice and easily up, down. Catch everything. Catch, catch, catch. And one little word of warning. We need to make a distinction between pronating in the forearm, which we have to do as we approach the tip of the bow, and accidentally pronating at the shoulder, which is very bad for our arm. If you pronate the shoulder joint like this and the elbow comes up, the arm, so if you find yourself getting tired, try to check if maybe you're doing that by accident as you do these Martelés, the down bows. That when you're pronating the forearm, that you don't add something in the shoulder that makes you uncomfortable. Curling the fingers and bending the thumb so that the wrist hinge works helps that. And coming from far enough in before you start an outward push is also important. If you're too far out when you start and then you try to push extra out, that'll bring your arm forward more. But if you're comfortable, if your shoulders are in somewhat the same position when you bring the bow to the string as when you're not playing the violin, and you start from that point with the wrist slightly higher than the elbow, pushing slightly outward as you go down should not feel difficult in the shoulder. Thank you for watching this. I hope it was helpful, and that you'll subscribe, share, and like the channel. See you soon. Bye.